If you do not have a positively framed goal, i.e. something that you actually want more of in your life, then you're gonna find it difficult to source the motivation that's required to remain disciplined in your pursuits of this outcome. Make sense? So, whilst you are now in this place, if you are saying something along the lines of, well, I don't know what I want in life, all right, well, to be honest with you, you're gonna have to hurry up and make a decision, all right, because your time is running out. I have known many people over the years to waste decades of their life just going round in circles, that stagnancy, that monotony. I just don't know what I want. Look and see, look to the future, look up. What do you want in your relationships? What do you want for your finances? What do you want your ideal home to look like? Right, see when you die, which could be tomorrow, could be next year, could be in a decade from now or 20, 30 years, and I hope that it is. How do you want to be remembered? Are you even bothered? Do you care? If you're saying I don't care about these things, there's no point you taking this course. If you're saying I want to leave a meaningful mark on the world, I want to leave a legacy for my children or for my grandchildren. I want to be a phenomenal husband or a phenomenal wife to my spouse. And I want to be a great parent, and I want to make a difference in my community or my society or in my organization or in my team or something like that. Well, fantastic. You've just defined a positively framed goal. It's now time though to quantify it. All right? It's one thing having a vision. Visions are broad, they're vague. Going back 10 years ago, I remember having a conversation with a couple of guys at the time. So I'm going to be one of the most popular in-demand psychologist teachers in the world. All right, okay, so there was a little bit ego driving that, I'm going to be completely honest with you, but 10 years on, all right, I might not have articulated it as concisely as what I could have done back then, but what I really wanted to do was make an impact. So, if this is you, and you do want to learn, and you do want to grow, and you now have some form of positive goal or objective that you could commit your next week to, or your next month to, or your next year or decade to, define it. Define it. In 3 words. In 5 words. All right. How do you do this? Good question. Thanks for asking. Right. 10 years ago, what was my goal? Define the main aim or objective. Change the world. That was my goal. Change the world. I wanted to change the world. But to be honest with you, it's a bit vague, it's a bit ambiguous, a little bit broad, right? We need goals to be specific. We need them to be quantified and defined so they can become actionable, all right? So, in order to, to progress towards our goals or objectives, we've got to define prerequisites for what success would look like. All right, so I'm offering you steps here, but you've got to go through and fill in these blanks. All right, I'm offering you kind of a basis for an exercise here, for a self-reflection exercise, but you've got to take yourself through this. So you've got your main aim, you've got your objective, which might be deeper connection, it might be professional progress, it could be a financial increase, it could be whatever. You decide your goals. Then we just simply need to define the prerequisites for what success would look like. Again, I can only share with you my own example, all right? It's the only perspective that I have. Just in case you're saying, Kane, you're a little bit subjective. Of course I am. I'm subjective to my own perspective because the only perspective that I have in life is my own. I don't understand yours because I don't know you, all right? So for me, success when I'm changing the world would look like an international community of people collaborating and learning together, for the purposes of holding each other accountable, for comparing notes, for sharing ideas, in a collaborative space. Okay, cool. That would kind of look to be success for me. How about some, okay, what else would success look like for me? If I was to be able to train some people and perhaps put in place this community, and then I can deliver live training events in there, and I can actually identify key individuals who are really kind of buying into what I'm teaching, so I can invest more into them and help them become like mini versions of me and go out there and kind of do what I'm doing. to whatever scale they want to do it. Because if I can invest into those people, then I get to duplicate myself and therefore speed up changing the world. We've then got to establish the most creative way of delivering these prerequisites. Right, okay. Now, bear in mind, I'm referencing here what I've already done, not what I want to do. Because if I was just talking about what I want to do here, then I'd be a hypocrite. I would be offering you no weight, there'd be no weight behind my teaching, all right? What I'm referencing here is everything that I've already done. It gives me a basis for all of my teaching. So, establish the most creative way of delivering prerequisites. So, I put in place an online learning community, a technology system where people can come along and buy these courses, and then they can partake in the interactive community in the back end. They can self-develop themselves at whatever pace they want to. They can collaborate with other people, they can get benefit, they can receive input from other people, perhaps through coaching or mentoring or something like that, from people who are perhaps just a few steps ahead of them. So we put in place some sort of mentoring culture that at the right time will allow and prepare people to advance and at some point be delivering the same or offering the same degree of support for other people. Great, fantastic. So now I'm thinking about fleshing out my idea, my goal, my objective. Because if I want to be productive, then I've got to get clear on what I want. And it needs to be something that I actually do want, not just a nice idea. Right? I've got to be able to envision this. Hence the reason I'm going into so much detail. Now, this might not mean anything to you. All I can do is lead by example. You've got to go through this process of imagining what your ideal outcomes would look like once eventualized. Right? Once delivered upon. If you can't see what you're working towards, then how are you ever going to know if you're gearing off track? You catching what I'm cooking? You hearing me? So we've got to qualify the objective now, that you understand the cost. Now what I mean by this is we've got to take a little bit of time to consider what the cost of you not pursuing this objective would be. Well, now I've considered putting in place this online collaborative peer learning environment that I can invest into. I love teaching. I love helping people to grow and develop. I love seeing people's faces when I communicate an idea and the lights go on. I've just imparted a gift into someone. That's what I've done. All right, I love this. Right? For me, seeing people's the lights go on for people is more rewarding than any amount of money that anyone could pay me. I don't care about money. Right? I always have only cared about impact. But we're not all the same. We're all different, aren't we? If I don't pursue this, then what's the cost? What would the potential cost be? Monotony, stagnancy, boredom. Now that I can see this meaningful thing that I can commit my life to, if I don't pursue this, I'm going to get bored. I can't not pursue this thing because I see it now. It's a vision. Okay, I could take this in a slightly different direction, right? Because we're all going to be here for different reasons. I have a vision for my family. Right, my wife and I haven't started a family yet, right? Next year is the year for us. My wife and I actually had a miscarriage this year. We had a miscarriage this year. It was a rough season that we went through. All right, and through this experience, the clarity that I got, the vision that I had for family became real to me. All right, I'd never envisioned myself being a dad before. Right? I've talked about it for years. It's like an idea, like an abstract concept. But when my wife Karen got pregnant, it became reality. I could see myself for the first time ever holding a child. I was, oh my goodness, this is fantastic. I can't wait. Then we had a miscarriage, one of these things. It was a bit of a blow because sometimes we get blows, sometimes we get setbacks. But I haven't stopped focusing on that, all right? I've just redirected energies and efforts on things that I can control because I couldn't control that one, neither could my wife. Right? So what I'm saying here is I've got a vision for family, which means that when my wife and I do eventually have our first child, I can take a 12-month sabbatical, right? Because I've got income being generated in the background, means I don't have to answer to anyone's beck and call. I'm completely free. I'm liberated. I do not have to answer to anyone. All right, which means that I can give my full undivided attention to my family and being a dad. So we've just gone from changing the world to being an available father of my own home. I'm just saying vision here. All right, some people are going to have a global vision. Some people are going to have a vision that exists within their own four walls or home or within their society or community. There's no right or wrong here. All right, hence the reason I wanted to touch on these two bases. But if we don't work hard, if we don't prepare ourselves, then there's going to be a cost. If I sit back and do nothing, right, if I don't deliver my best, if I don't work hard, if I don't commit to the process of growing and developing and improving myself, then this is always going to come at the cost not just to me, but potentially my family, my son, my daughter that I don't yet have, or the people that who don't even know that I exist yet, the people that I could teach at some point in the future. So if I do my best, there's a greater chance of people saying, oh, have you heard of that? I heard of that Kane Ramsey? His stuff's not too bad. A little bit outspoken sometimes, a little bit out there, a bit Scottish, but you know, we're not going to hold it against him. But there's always going to be a cost when we don't pursue or commit to pursuing what it is that we're passionate about. All right? And that will give you a basis for all boredom and low outputs and depression and sadness and all that sort of thing moving forward. So we've got to, step 5, determine and eliminate any unnecessary risks. Right. Determine and eliminate any unnecessary risks. When I started teaching online, giving you a bit of a life history lesson here. When I started teaching online around about 8 or 9 years ago, I've been teaching this stuff for a long, long time. I was teaching it offline before I went online. I wasn't as effective or efficient offline as what I was online, because when I was teaching offline, I was bound and restricted to my immediate community. All right. As soon as I went online, I was bound by an international community. So I remember publishing my courses through a couple of online marketplaces. You might even be taking this in one of such marketplaces. And when we first started out, some of these kind of course marketplaces were, it was quite a fair working arrangement. It was like, 50-50. So the course marketplaces would take a 50% commission for selling my products or selling my training courses. I would invest into creating them, all right, quite heavily, time and money. And they would invest into their website that would ultimately sell them. It was fair. Then at some point in recent years, some of these marketplaces have become bigger. COVID-19 saw the world go online, take online courses, and some of these marketplaces said, no, it's not going to be 50-50 anymore. It's going to be 67. It's going to be imbalanced now. And as soon as I saw that, I thought, I cannot trust any business or organization to look out for my financial future that I do not own. All right, I saw it clear as day. If I stay committed to some of these online course e-learning marketplaces, they could raise their percentage higher and higher and higher, and it's potentially leave me with nothing because I do not have the final say. I don't have influence in those organizations. For me, that was risk, business risk. All right, but I'm not just here to talk about relationships or your feelings or anything like this. I want to be delivering this training in a really balanced way, because we're going to have some people are mothers and fathers, other people are going to be managers or leaders or entrepreneurs or students thinking about just getting started on their kind of entrepreneurial journey and everything in between. All right, but here's the thing, if we're not taking time to consider risks, then when the risks come along, we can get bowled over by them. My wife and I, Karen, we never thought that we might have a miscarriage, right? Not really a risk, that one. It was just an unforeseen circumstance. We just didn't kind of see it coming. Then it happened, and we were both knocked a little bit for 6. It kind of came out of the blue, and then it went just as quickly as it came. But these are the things we've got to think about. This is a reason why I say this is because some people put all their eggs in one basket. All right, I knew a couple years ago, a great business couple, very, very effective in business. They held off on having a family, kind of much like my wife and I, Karen. So they started a family a little bit later in life. Well, they wanted to start a family a little bit later in life. Assumed that, in their early 40s, they would just have a child and that would be it. Didn't take into consideration the risk factor that it might not happen. All right, just assumed that it would. By the time they were both in their mid-40s, all right, the pair of them were emotionally demoralized, crushed. Their Marriage was in crisis. They were both seeing independent counsellors and therapists. They were both questioning their own identities as human beings because they hadn't been able to produce a child. Right? They went on to adopt and all that kind of stuff, and all is history. But what I'm saying is, all right, where the focus goes, the energy flows. All right, and whilst it's good to be clear on the vision that you have for your family, whilst it's good to be clear on the vision that you have for your business or for your financial future or for the impact you want to make in society, those things are great. Don't worship these things as gods. Because if you make these things deities in your life and you worship them, i.e., if I could reframe this in a way that you understand, that makes sense to you, some people worship their goals or their visions. You know, my life will only be worth living if I can make this end, if I can meet this goal, if I can meet this objective. You know, I need 1 million followers on Instagram or Facebook, or I need to be popular, or I need to be promoted, or something like that, or I need to have a family. All right, what I realised this year was that I may never have a child. It's a risk. I don't know. I can't tell the future. All right? So I can't control that, but what I can control is what I can control. I can do everything in my power to make myself available, fully available, if that day ever comes. But I'm not going to worship that child or having a family as a deity, because if that day doesn't come, I'll end up crushed, emotionally crushed. Right? Likewise with the business. I'm not going to invest my life into this business, training these courses. I'm going to be finishing this in a couple of years, and I'm moving on to something else. All right? Why? Because I've kind of milked the personal development, applied psychology thing, and I love growing. All right? I want to get into leadership and entrepreneurship and all that kind of stuff. It's where my focus is going right now. But this course, if this course doesn't sell, I'm not going to be crushed. If this course gets like 1-star reviews, people, I don't like that, Kane Ramsey, this course didn't meet my expectations. I don't care. All right? As soon as I've finished creating this, I'll have forgotten about it and I'll be on to the next thing. All right? Because my focus isn't on the outcomes that are generated in it. It's about the impact that I make. All right? If that makes sense. I don't need any specific outcome from any specific life effort or investment that I make. All right? I'm okay with this winning. I'm okay with this failing. All right? I was okay with having a miscarriage because I wasn't entitled to not having a miscarriage. All right? So this is probably quite a countercultural way of thinking and looking at life. Right? People are only crushed by their circumstances and not getting the things that they want when there's a degree or an attitude of entitlement within them. We're getting a little bit closer to the bone now. All right? We're just going to get straight for a few minutes. Seriously, what do you think you're entitled to? Do you think you're entitled to, finding that perfect ideal partner? Do you think you're entitled to having your name in Broadway? Do you think you're entitled to having a family, to being a success, to making money, you think you're entitled to having an easy an easy experience of life? You're not entitled to anything. You're equally not entitled to a lifetime of hardship or monotony. You're not entitled to low outcomes for the rest of your life. And the beautiful thing is you're not entitled to anything. Right? If you can get over any air of entitlement that you have, this will set you free to simply commit to the process of enjoying the journey. Could you imagine if your life was governed not just by the outcomes that you might get at some point in the future, but by actually just doing your best every single step of the way? Like, all I have right now is right now. Right? I'm focused on communicating with you. Right? I like to do my best to communicate in a dialogue kind of fashion. I'm telling you what I'm doing here. Right? Over the years, I've found that people tend to engage in what I say when they feel like I'm there in the room with them. Right? So I'm looking at you, I see you, I'm speaking to you here. Right? I'm not here to deliver a PowerPoint presentation and give you some information and then go and have my dinner. No, not at all. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to enlighten you. So I want to jump into the room with you. All right? And give you my all, give you my best. Whether you appreciate this, in my eyes, is irrelevant. I'm not doing it for your appreciation. I'm doing it to teach and enlighten those who are ready to learn. All right, but you might not. You might not like it, and that's okay. It's a risk I'm willing to take. So what risk are you willing to take? All right, what risks, what uncertainties face you as you pursue your main objective? Predict outputs and outcomes. Now decide if they're worth pursuing. All right, we're going to make predictions here. Have you ever heard the term faith before? I think George Michael sang a song about this. God rest his soul. You gotta have faith. I'm sounding a bit like Elvis there. You gotta have faith. Okay, faith and action walk hand in hand. All right, there's the religious kind of faith where people kind of sit around in worship arenas just praying that God's going to give them a nice life, and then you'll have those kind of people that read books such as The Secret, just manifest things into the universe. You ever read The Secret? Right, I diverse here a little bit. I read this book about maybe 11 or 12 years ago. It was the first kind of self-help book that I read, and it was one of the last of that nature. I remember reading this, being quite practically minded, and there was a story about a little boy, and he just wanted a new bike. So he knelt on his knees and he looked to the sky and he manifested this bike into the universe. And he woke up the next morning, little Jimmy ran outside, and to his delight there was a bike the universe had granted his heart's truest desires. What a crock of nonsense, right? I can vouch for this being nonsense because I got on my knees and tried to manifest myself a Lamborghini for 3 years, and I'm still waiting to see it come. It hasn't happened yet, so it's nonsense. Or maybe I wasn't good enough, or maybe I didn't try hard enough. Or maybe it's actually wiser just to build plans around our objectives so we can take control of the process. Who knows? Who knows? All right, listen, you decide what's going to work for you. Predict outputs and outcomes. Decide if they're worth pursuing. I want to change the world. I'm going to have to make some money in the process. I want to be debt-free. I just about am debt-free. I want to train some people who become equipped and fit to train some people. And if I can get all that in place, then if my wife and I do fall pregnant, well, my wife more than me, but I'll support her in the process. I'm saying we are the cumulative we. She gets pregnant, then I'm going to be fully available to enjoy the pregnancy with her, and then be a fully available father. Are they worth pursuing? Yes. But what happens if someone comes along and says, Kane, can you come and join my business? Can I have some of your time? No, because I'm focused on what I want, which therefore means that what anyone else wants who isn't me is irrelevant. I don't care. So they can send their emails. I don't have to discipline myself to looking at emails only between the hours of 7 and 8 o'clock in the morning. I don't have to get out of bed at 5 o'clock in the morning and jump in one of these ice baths to get productive. I'm clear on what I want. I know what my goals are. I know where I'm going in life. And the only thing that's going to stop me from achieving those goals is death itself. And he's tried a couple of times over the last few years, and I've whipped his ass for now. But I don't think I'm going to be able to whip his ass forever. Right. Step 7. Once you start progressing, all right, and what I'm offering you here really is just a path to progress. Is it okay if you make progress in your life? Would that be okay? Because if you think about it, if you're making progress, that's going to be an indication that you are being productive. Progress is an indication of productivity. But you're only going to be productive if you're actually ticking boxes and meeting milestones that are getting you closer towards your main objective. If you can see yourself getting closer to your main objective, then you're going to say, yes, I'm making progress. So you've got to monitor the results and the tasks to determine productivity, value, and efficiency along the way. Are you getting closer to what you want, or are you not? I have spent that online learning community thing I've been talking about, all right? I have been investing into that for over 5 years. I will have put over £1.5 million into Achology and life skills by Achology and all this kind of stuff. All right, because I believe in it. First couple of years, perhaps I was a little bit reckless because I chose to invest into that rather than pay off my own mortgage. All right, so what I'm saying is I've been imperfect along the way. I've made a few mistakes. As we kind of launch Achology 2.0, everything that I wanted to have in place 5 years ago is now in place. Have I made any money? No. Has it cost me 5 years of my life? Yes. Has it cost me more than what I ever thought I would spend on a web development project? Yes. But is it rewarding to see what has been built? Yes. Have I had some experiences along the way? Yes. Have I made some mistakes? Yes. Have I learned some lessons? Yes. Could I share these lessons with other people who want to do the same or a similar thing? Yes. Does that make me a more valuable and a wiser human being? Yes. Was it worth it? Yes. Am I there yet? No. Will it ever get there? Will it ever be there yet, whatever there is? I'm not sure. I really couldn't tell you. I can't guarantee that. That's just the risk we've got to take. We might not get there. But just because we might not get there doesn't mean that we should never get started on the journey. Right, friends, what's your goal? Where you going? Right? If you're not clear on where you're going, you've got no basis for getting focused. And if you've got no basis for getting focused, you've got no basis and no reason to discipline yourself along the way. And if you are not being disciplined along the way, all right, then you're certainly not going to be even mildly productive or effective or efficient or any of these things.